We already have done the introduction, so I would just invite. Can we have it on the screen, please?
Okay. Sorry, I just started, please. Okay.
Yeah. Hello. Hi. It's so exciting to see you, ma'am. Is the applause audible?
Hello, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing in India today?
Doing really great. Thank you so much, and good morning to you.
Good morning here in Houston. Yes, it's a little bit of a time change, but so happy to be here with you. So thank you very much for your kind introduction and allowing me to come chat with you today.
In fact, it's our good fortune that we can interact with you today. I mean, we were looking forward to this moment for quite a long time. Most welcome to our campus, ma'am. I would ask Mr. Rahul Karad, who happens to be the founder, convener, Indian Student Parliament, and Dean, MIT School of Government, which happens to be the first Indian government school to train people to enter in politics, welcome you. Mr. Rahul Karad.
Hello, good morning to you, Sunita ji. My name is Rahul Karad. I am so delighted that just 2 months before, when you were in the space, and that time the correspondence was done from my institution to speak for this Indian Students Parliament, the first such platform in the country to inculcate the values for democracy and generate the interest among the student community to participate in public life. And I'm sure that your office must have given a very well briefing, and it was very, very meticulously planned by NASA office. Thank you so much for that. And today you are here. We all are very excited here. All my students of various disciplines here, they are gathered. This is the first private engineering college in the city of Pune, the technology college, which was started in 1983. And now there are over 300 colleges in this particular state of Maharashtra. Under this institution, we are doing number of activities, and I must, because my student friends, they are here, they do not aware the communication between your office and the purpose of today. Of course, we just now showed you a very brief film to these students, and also about the background of and the purpose of today's your interaction with them. Basically, last 3 years we have initiated this platform, that how do we really, because India has a big challenge that there are so many issues. The country is so huge, 120 crore population, over 1 billion population, and our so many cultures, so many diverse backgrounds, so many different religions. And with this, in last 65 years of independence, what India has achieved, I think the whole world is seeing the development in science and technology and all the fields. And here we say that any country's fate is dependent on the good leaders, and we want good leaders to be ruled and to strengthen our democratic fabric of our nation. So Bharatiya Chhatra Sansad, the Indian Student Parliament, is one such platform where we are gathering such young ambassadors of democracy who have the liking for public life. And every year on 10th, 11th, 12th of January, we gather them in city of Pune. Across the country, the tallest people from all the fields, they participate in this. And I know that 10th, 11th, 12th was not suitable for your office to interact with that particular gathering, but I think I'm happy that the Bharatiya Chhatra Sansad, today one way it is getting unveiled, or I can say the first session of third Bharatiya Chhatra Sansad or Indian Student Parliament, my students are going to listen. So without taking much time, I have a great satisfaction, and the whole country today is witnessing through this live streaming by the internet media, and also the Indian media is also here, and the student community of engineering and all the various disciplines of our colleges. Without taking much time, I open this session for you, and once again, on behalf of the bodies of trustees my students, my staff, I welcome you, madam. Thank you so much. We are so happy. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you accommodating our schedule. My schedule has been a little bit busy. I just got back just a little bit over a month ago from space, and so I appreciate you being able to come out this morning or this evening. And I know the event on the 10th, 11th, 12th is going to be great, so I wish I could be there for that, but I hope this will do okay. So I'm looking at the schedule. I think it's, should I continue on? I didn't know if we wanted to have any other introductions or anything at this point in time.
No, it's over to you, ma'am. Over to you.
Okay. So like I was saying, I just got back from space just a little over a month ago. It was my second time into space. It was a lot different from my first time into space. First time I was part of a space shuttle crew. That means 7 people flying up to space on an American space shuttle. This time I went on a Russian Soyuz rocket, one of 3. So it was a big car and then went into a little car, essentially getting into space and into the International Space Station. But both flights, I was lucky enough to be able to be flown up to the space station and spend some time up there. The first flight was all full of construction when we were building the space station. So it was planned that we would do some spacewalks as well as some other things, some science experiments, and also some engineering tasks inside of the spacecraft just to get it ready for its continued build. It was more like a construction site. This time, the spacecraft, the International Space Station, was essentially fully completed. We had on our schedule 1 spacewalk. What was more interesting is we also had visiting vehicles, new vehicles being constructed, controlled by private companies coming up to the space station, as well as typical spacecraft that were coming up on a regular basis for resupply. We had a European spacecraft up there for resupply. We had a Japanese spacecraft for resupply. We had an American commercial spacecraft for resupply. So it was very busy using the robotic arm as well as doing science experiments. And so engineering experiments, science experiments, and then doing stuff like spacewalks outside for a repair of a major box, electrical box that was outside on the truss, as we call it, in space. We actually ended up doing 3 spacewalks because we had a little bit of a trouble getting one of our, finishing one of our spacewalks because the electrical box didn't work quite right. And then we solved another problem, which was a fluid leak. So the time I was up there was very busy. It ended up being a little bit like the construction my first flight, but it had a huge sense of science. And like was mentioned, I was actually the commander of the space station for the second half of my stay up on the space station. And people say, well, what are you the commander of? There's only really 3 or 6 people up there. And that's true, and I think one of the most important things that makes for a successful spaceflight mission is actually that you are a team and you work together as a team. And it seems like the commander is actually fairly seamless. The commandership really happens in the beginning phases of any project when you're trying to get people to work together and understand each other and feel comfortable in the environment that they'll be working. So I think my task as the commander was completed actually more so in the very beginning and during all of our training here on the ground. We go through about 2.5 years of training. I sent a PowerPoint picture show that might have shown a little bit of training. It's pretty intense. We do training here in the United States, of course. We do training in Russia because we're flying on a Russian spacecraft. We also do training in Canada to use the robotic arm, in Europe for their module, their laboratory, and also Japan for their laboratory. And so it's pretty extensive, and you travel a lot with your crew, and you get to know your crew and your crew's families. And you know that different people learn differently and think differently, and I think those are some of the key aspects of being a leader and being a team player is understanding the people that you're working with, and understanding what makes them function well and what makes them function poorly, and try to avoid those things that makes people function poorly, and really focus on the things, the aspects or the attributes that people bring to the table. So like I said, my role as a commander also was on the ground here before we left, and it was also on the ground not only with our crewmates but also with our flight control teams. I remember all those places I mentioned for training also have a flight control center, which means they have a flight director and then a whole team of people that are working on all of the different aspects, engineering, science, medical, of their specific experiments that they're doing. And so as a team leader, you're one who sort of rallies all those people as well. And so you can't lose sight of the fact that even though there was only 3 or 6 people on the space station, there are thousands of people all over the world that were working for our mission and making sure what we were doing was correct. And so you're sort of the team leader of all these people. And sometimes you're specifically just the cheerleader, the guy who, when something goes bad, you go, it's okay, it doesn't matter. We can figure this out. There's smart people out there, and we can figure out this problem, and we can work this problem and be okay. And one of the biggest compliments I think I got was from the Japanese Control Center, who told us that we were the smiley crew, which I think that means a lot. Just a big smile on the screen in mission control will make everybody else smile. And I think that's probably one of the most important things about being a leader, is being positive and helping people around you to be positive. So I know this forum addressed leadership, and all these young leaders out there. I see it's like hundreds of you guys out there. My gosh, this audience is huge. Wow. So I'm happy to be here. It's actually pretty humbling, I laugh a little bit about being on the space station because when we're talking to people, because you don't see everybody, it's a one-way video conference when we have public relations events in space. And so it's maybe a little bit easier because you don't get a little nervous like I am right now seeing all of you people out there. So on the space station, you feel like you're just talking to yourselves with the other guys that are on there. But now you see, like in this event, I see all of you, so I'm a little bit more nervous. People ask about that too. They say, oh, you're going to space, you're going in a rocket, you're going to do spacewalks. Do you get nervous about what you're doing? And I think just like you guys here, you're trained in engineering, you're trained in whatever aspect of, whatever field you're working on, arts, politics, engineering, science, medical, you're trained in that, and so you know that pretty well, and so you don't really get nervous when you're actually in your field. Likewise, when I was getting on the rocket, I had trained so long for it, it wasn't nervous at all. It was like I knew I had to do certain steps and get those things done. When I was up doing a spacewalk, same type of thing. I had trained so much for it that I wasn't really nervous. And I see everybody waving in the back there. Hi. So it's it's just like you guys, and what you train for is what you'll be good at. And the quote I think earlier was, you'll find something you like, and you might have to look a couple times at different things out there, some different fields, like maybe engineering isn't for you. Go into science if you find that makes you a little bit more happy. And if it makes you happy, it makes you smile, you'll do well. I'm sure of that. And then, if you want to take leadership positions, take leadership positions. Also, speaking of that, not everybody is cut out to be the top leader, and figure out where you feel comfortable in an organization, and then you will do well. Just like if you're happy in some field that you pick, you'll do well. Figure out where in that organization your skills are more focused at. I came from a military background. I'm a Navy helicopter pilot before I became an astronaut. And I really felt very comfortable dealing with a lot of people. I liked having a group of people that worked with me. I liked, hearing about their different personalities and their problems, their issues, and how I would help them be able to, make their careers a little bit better. So it felt sort of natural to, go on to be the International Space Station commander. That was something that I liked. We have other people in our office here as astronauts who are much more happy, much more content with doing science experiments, coming up with science experiments on their own while they're on the space station. They choose to be the leader, the commander. They have a huge contribution to what we're doing here. So I also ask you guys to figure out where you feel you fit in best and where your skills and your personality is most comfortable. And then you will be a huge asset to the organization that you're working for and will make that organization a success. So there are a couple things that I've mentioned here. Find what you like to do. Not everybody likes to do the same thing, and that's okay. Find out what you like to do, and then find where you're most comfortable doing your activity, and do it as best as you can. And I think everybody here will be a success. I would like to actually open up the forum to some questions, because I'm sure what I'm talking about has not been answered, all of the questions that you guys have out there. So I'd love to hear from you guys and see if you guys have any questions for me, if that's okay.
Sure, ma'am. We have a lot of questions for you. But before that, I would really want to tell you, you're simply lovable, adorable, and inspiring. I mean, we really enjoyed whatever you had. It's very nice, whatever you said, and definitely inspiring. Thank you so much for all that insight that you gave to us from your successful leadership. And a few questions now, maybe. I'll read out the names of the question speaker, and the boy concerned will be asking you the question. That is what the process would be. The first question would come from Adarsh Tatiya, who happens to be an engineering student. Adarsh.
Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning.
I'm really glad, and I've never been so excited before. And every time I read about you or I listen about you, there's only one question running in my mind, and that is, after being miles away from the Earth into the space, what does travel exactly mean to you?
Oh, very interesting question. There's another gentleman in my office, and I have to quote him. So his name is Don Pettit. He's pretty amazing, and I think one of the coolest way he's described being in space and travel is. You might have heard this before, and if you did, I'm sorry to repeat a little bit. But when you're in a city and you drive into your coming home and you drive into your park in your driveway back at home and you get to your house, you feel like you're home. When you go to another big city in the country and you have to take an airplane home, as soon as you land in that city where you live, you feel like you're home. If you have to go to another country and you come back and you land in your home country, though it's not the city that you live in, you feel like you're home, right? Yeah. And it continues on. So then when you're in low Earth orbit, say like we were in the space station, and you land in Kazakhstan like we did, even though it's really far away, you feel like it's home because it's Earth. And we hope that one day that when you're flying to Mars or the moon and you come back to low Earth orbit around our planet, you'll feel like it's home.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm really glad that I finally got the answer.
The next question comes from Komal Suryavanshi, who again is an engineering student. Komal Suryavanshi.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good evening. I should correct myself. It's evening there.
And my question is, in International Space Stations 0, you were installed a new main bus switching unit. new main bus switching unit. That time while you working on this task, what difficulties you are faced? Because the tightening bolt in a earth, it's that much easy, but tightening in a space is that much not easy.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Aki Hoshide, a Japanese astronaut, and myself were both out on a spacewalk. It ended up being about 8 hours long. That's probably as long as you ever want a spacewalk to be, because it's just a long time in that suit, which is not quite easy. So what we tried to do was we took out the old box, main bus switching unit, and then we installed a new main bus switching unit. When we installed it, and Aki was actually driving the tool that unbolted the main bus switching unit, he found that it was a little bit hard to take off. I actually put the old one in a temporary carrier place, and I found that it also was a little bit difficult to install. But we got it off and we installed it into the temporary carrying plate. And then when we put the new one in, we were having a difficulty driving it in. So I think it didn't have to do necessarily with space. It just had to do with when it was initially installed, which was over 10 years ago, back on Earth. It was not oriented straight, it was oriented at an angle. And even the folks who installed it initially said that they had a little bit of a difficulty installing and really had to put chart on it. So I think the plate which the box fits on was potentially maybe just misshaped a little bit when they initially installed it, and that's what caused the problem for us installing it the second time. But what was really cool about that, because I'm always if you know, saying glass half full type of person, what was really cool about that is it brought our whole engineering team here together on the ground, and they went and figured out exactly how to fix that. We hadn't planned on a bolt housing not working in space before. We thought, gosh, everything is going to work perfectly because these things are made of really strong metal. Everything's going to line up. It's not going to be a problem. It's tested on the ground beforehand. But that's not always true. And we found that a number of times up there. And they got together and they came up with tools that we needed to put together while we were up in space from other pieces and parts, including a toothbrush, which you probably heard of, and a wire brush, and a new bolt to tap the fitting out, and they came up with all of that in about 5 days. And we put all that stuff together and went out there, and the second spacewalk, it all worked. So I think the flip side of that story is in your careers you're gonna find a lot of things are unpredictable or not as planned, and it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just sit down together and put your heads together and come up with a solution that will make it work. Because that main bus switching unit had to work. There was really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's a main piece that distributes power throughout the space station from the solar rays. And one way or another, I've learned at NASA, there's no saying, failure is not an option, which you probably have heard. And it really isn't, because you have to get the stuff fixed. You have to make sure it works up there. So I have no doubt in my mind. I have no doubt in my mind that we would eventually get it fixed, and that's, I think, a great lesson learned for every organization out there. You can't just say no, I quit, fail, and it's over with. You just need to be a little bit more persistent, have some patience, and come up with a really good solution.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You must have got a glimpse of composition of intelligent students in MIT, ma'am.
Exactly. That's why I said I think the things that I sometimes are not prepared for is the number of people who are listening and the number of people that I'm interacting with. That I don't have a lot of training with.
The next person in is Preeta Gawande. I'm so sorry. Preeta Gawande, a student of Bachelor of Computer Applications.
Hello, ma'am. I'm greatly privileged today to talk to you. My question is, being an Indian, what inspired you to work with an American academy like NASA?
I'm half Indian and half Slovenian. I was born here in the United States. My father's from Gujarat. he went to medical school in India and then came over to the U.S. where he met my mother. And my brother and my sister and myself are a product of them. We all are very different in things that we do. My brother's actually works for Johns Hopkins as a nuclear medicine technician. My sister is a web designer at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And then I work at NASA. I think one of the biggest things we learned from our parents, particularly my dad as a scientist, is the importance of science and the importance of further education for one thing, and then in getting into a field that you love. My father is a neuroscientist, and I remember going to the laboratory with him on Saturday morning, when everybody else was watching cartoons. He would take one of us, the lucky kid, got to go to the laboratory and watch him do his stuff and look at the electron microscope, and we all loved it. We all thought that was really fun and really cool, and so I think he surely installed a drive of finding something that you like, even on the weekends, going in and working on stuff, because it's fun and just because you like it, and the sense of family with bringing your kids with you to look at, like neurons of brain tissue through the electron microscope. So we all love that type of stuff. We thought that was pretty neat. And of course, my mom was primarily the more athletic one in the family. She was the one who drove all of us to be pretty athletic. We were swimmers all while we were growing up. And I think both of those attributes of having a scientific mind and also being in good physical fitness shape, which is something that is required to be an astronaut. I think both of those things brought me right to NASA. So I have to say my parents were a huge influence on everything that I did. And I think it just goes hand in hand, by the way, just getting back to my father's background as a neuroscientist and a doctor. I mean, you hear so many amazing, smart people coming out of India with the backgrounds that you have in the universities and the colleges you have there for science and math. It's just amazing. So I think it's not necessarily typical, but it just goes hand in hand. So I'm very proud to have had my background growing up with my parents, my Indian background and my Slovenian background.
Thank you, ma'am, and I congratulate you for your success.
Thank you so much for that nice answer. The next question comes from Chinmay Mahajan, and it's a different question again. Chinmay?
Hello, ma'am. Very good evening. Actually, I'm here to ask you a question on behalf of Professor J.P. Shah. He is the president of an NGO, Kalpana Youth Foundation, which is formed to spread awareness of space science. His question is, how we can give more benefits to Indian students regarding space exploration, and what are your suggestions and guidelines for their active participation in this field?
Okay, so I think I understand the question. So what would I suggest to the students here at Pune, and how can everyone contribute to space exploration? Is that sort of the summarization? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So from what I've read about the organization here and the students here and what we talked about at the very beginning of the program, it sounds like everybody who's here is what you say, chomping at the bit, ready to go to get out into their fields and be part of the leadership out there. And I highly suggest that everybody, the two things that I mentioned already was sort of find the field that you love and find your place in that organization. I think one of the biggest things that people can contribute is their ideas and their creativity to any type of program, because you can go down a program, be in a program, and it does the same thing every single day, but eventually that's going to get old, or that idea is going to die away or be replaced by some other new idea. So get out there and be creative and come up with your own ideas, but again, find the things that you love, find your place in the organization, and then participate as much as possible. I think one of the other things I read about the organization is also, new people getting out there and doing these types of things, which are science and math, and, you know, being part of an organization keeps people working on peaceful endeavors where they're working with people, you know, and joining for positive contributions to the world, and, you know, for that matter, for, you know, into space, if people are interested in space and contributing to space. So this is all part of what you guys are, or your organization does and your school does. So I think what you're doing is right on tap. I'm anxious and hoping that there will be more Indian astronauts in the future. I think there's a whole room full of people who are there who are interested in it, and obviously you came out this evening, and I'm hoping that there will be many more to follow in my footsteps.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
We hope too, ma'am, that many of you follow on your footsteps and take your guidance. The next question comes from Manali Jeshthe, who again is a student of BSc, that is Bachelor of Science.
Good evening, ma'am. My question is, what are your current and forthcoming plans in space explorations?
Let's see. Myself, you know, I just got back, so I have a lot of current experience, and so I'd like to help out the next group of astronauts who are getting ready to fly. Specifically, you know, the U.S. and our partners who are sitting in what we call the left seat of the Soyuz, which is essentially like the pilot seat. And so I'm hopefully going to be helping them out for the next year because my experience is current. For the future, I'm not exactly sure what's on tap, and that's exciting, actually. My future is sort of near, you know, because I'm probably going to be working in the space program for the next 5 or 10 years. There's a lot up in the air, and I'm hoping to help develop the next spacecraft, help out as much as I can to develop the next things that we're going to be doing. Because I think, you know, our plan as NASA, we're very happy to give over transportation to low Earth orbit to commercial companies. And then NASA will take the next step on for a little further exploration with a bigger rocket. So I would like to be part of that. And let me just explain what I mean about other companies and programs coming up to low Earth orbit. You know, in the past, it usually took us like a couple days to get to space, to get to orbit, to get to the space station, and a couple days to get home. While I was up on the space station, we were able to see 2 Russian Progress vehicles launch in the morning, and by lunchtime, they were up on the space station, docking to the space station. So just about 4 or 5 hours, they were docking. Likewise, we were able to release a SpaceX spacecraft at lunchtime, and by dinner time, it was landing off the coast of California, just about 4 hours. It's not 30 minutes, it's a couple hours to get to low Earth orbit and a couple hours to get back to from low Earth orbit. But that's the shape of things to come. Things are getting accelerated.